doing some monumentally stupid things and presiding over one of the worst handlings of the COVID crisis in the nation, decided that I think this came out in October or September, but he decided he was going to write a book about how good a job he did during the COVID-19 pandemic. And people were loving it. They were eating it up. As of now, he's still not coming clean with how much money he got for this book. Any money, any amount of money is too much. But just the fact that Andrew Cuomo did a mission accomplished in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. If you don't know what the mission accomplished is, that's when George Bush, flew in on a fighter on the carrier, wearing, like, he was wearing a jumpsuit, said mission accomplished in the Iraq war, and then a bunch of people died. That's what Andrew Cuomo did with his leadership lessons book. But it's worse than that. Because if you just take, and let's talk about his coverage. And it isn't just a government scandal, it's a media scandal. Because now we're getting to see why people were praising this guy as the hero of the pandemic. Like the hero who has the most deaths on his hands of any governor in the state, in the country. And people were trying to blame Trump. Like, seriously, people were blaming Trump for the death count, despite the fact that state governors were in control. So this is, like I said, that's media. Media is pretending that the federal government was responsible for everything happening. Now, the federal government could have done things to help. PPE. And in fact, the federal government can still do things, and it's not doing it. Trump didn't do it. Biden's not doing it. We still don't have widespread access to N95 masks. They still have people running around here with fashion accessories, and now Biden has decided to using the media to convince people to run around with 2 or 3 fashion accessories on their face instead of actual personal protective equipment. This is the power of the media. The media spun this dude into being the hero, the valiant, courageous Andrew Cuomo, and it's absurd considering all of the, not just the dumb stuff he did, but the fact just looking at the numbers made it clear that this guy was horrible. But like they said, they were constantly putting him on TV. His brother was hosting, was interviewing him, and it was so fun to see brothers jabbing each other and the sibling, playfulness between each other. And oh yeah, mom says you missed too many dinners. You better show up on Sunday for Sunday dinner. Like, it was just, it was so amazing, and it made everybody feel warm and fuzzy inside, except people who were actually dying and people who were losing loved ones who were here in New York, who knew that this was complete and utter nonsense. Actually, there were people in New York who still believed the nonsense, but there were plenty of people who were directly affected who realized, no, this is absurd, absolutely absurd. And if you just take a look at the maps, the early maps of the highest concentrations that coincided to the path of the MTA, from between path and New York City subways, like that. Those were the highest concentrations of deaths. So if the MTA, which I'm going to be doing a separate video about that, the MTA's its role in the coronavirus, in the COVID-19 crisis. But if you just take a look at it, like Cuomo being in charge of the MTA, like his mismanagement, not just during the crisis, but before the crisis, was responsible for so much mayhem. But the media told a story. They created a narrative, and they sold it. And people who aren't on the ground and people who just watch the news were deluded and deceived into believing that Andrew Cuomo was somehow a hero throughout all of this. Yeah. Like she says, Celiza glossed over other numbers. New York had the most overall COVID deaths of any state, a number only recently surpassed by California, which has nearly doubled the population. But meanwhile, they were saying Cuomo great, DeSantis bad. Highest death toll in the country, but he was the hero of the story. It wasn't just CNN, MSNBC. Um, so on MSNBC in May, ever so gently asked about the nursing home death count and let the governor ramble on how his biggest flaw is doing too much. No follow-up questions. No follow-up questions. Softballs, and you do whatever you want to do. No follow-up questions. Good Morning America. Homecoming king of this crisis. This is what the media did. Like, this is a lesson, not just about Cuomo. Because after this is over, whether he's impeached, whether he resigns, I don't know how that's going to end. But this is a lesson. Stop believing the media. They're not journalists. They're propagandists. They're experts at creating stories, creating narratives, and then selling lies to you in a format that just fits so neatly and makes you feel however they need you to feel in that moment. Oh yeah, when he was on Good Morning America, he did not receive any questions about the nursing home deaths. And this was before his book was released in October, which became an instant bestseller. Think about that. This man presided over the highest death toll in the country. Wrote a book while the crisis is still going on, and sold copies to be a bestseller while the crisis is still going on. So in October, Sonny Hostin did mention the nursing home controversy, but let him deny he ever sent a directive, and then they went back to discussing his love life. Janice Dean. So now Janice Dean was going in, and quite frankly, as you can see, she's pissed. Like, she has a reason to. Both of her in-laws were in a nursing home and died. And so they said she suffered abuse from the Cuomo administration. And said she's not a credible source on anything except maybe the weather. The condescension. Like this is who Cuomo is, but this is what the media covered for. And it's so, I mean, but these are part of the interesting things to take a look at, how the media became cheerleaders, became writers, fiction writers, because they wrote a fiction and they sold the fiction. But if we fast forward to what's happening recently, when the nursing home scandal broke and Cuomo was exposed, let's talk about Ron